Hello and welcome to Westminster Watch with me, Nick de Bois. On this week's show, we're looking at Britain's universities. Led by the duo of Oxford and Cambridge, they have long been a key projection of soft power for Britain, with hundreds of thousands of international students coming to study in the UK and bringing with them billions in spending power. But in recent years, that's been changing. Students are counted in immigration figures, and with record amounts of people coming in, politicians are keen to bring the numbers down. Combined with inflation, that's led to a funding crisis that threatens to bankrupt the sector. How did we get here? Our reporter, Ellen Morgan, explains.
Mrs. Thatcher's speech.
It was under the last Labour government that higher education in the UK changed beyond recognition. Back then, it was Tony Blair in 10 Downing Street, and he wanted half of all of Britain's young people to go on to higher education. The aim was to turn the UK into a high-skilled society, away from manufacturing goods into services, and bring with it higher wages and arguably more rewarding work. That was the theory, but how did it work in practice? For one, universities needed huge amounts of money to cope with providing hundreds of thousands of extra places, and this would be paid for by the students themselves. In England, that meant an annual tuition fee of just under $4,000 in 2006. 2 decades on, that figure has tripled to around $12,000, despite being capped in 2017. According to universities, this will have to rise again to over $16,000 to keep pace with inflation. A key source of income has been international students who pay even higher fees than domestic students. But that too has been changing, with changing visa rules and a crash in the Nigerian naira leading to a 17% drop in applications. 40% of British universities will run at a deficit this year, raising serious questions about whether they can maintain their world-class status.
The high cost of tuition is making many young people question whether it's even worth going to university anymore, something bolstered by the news that the graduate wage gap is shrinking. According to government figures, since 2007, real-time median salaries have fallen for all people, but while non-graduates have lost around $1,300 of annual income, graduates have seen their take-home pay shrink from $39,000 in 2007 to less than $34,000 in 2023. With that in mind, does it really pay to go to university? We sent our producers to nearby University College London to find out.
Do you feel like your degree is value for money?
Is my degree value for money? I actually think it is. I feel like there are really lots of opportunities for research, consultancy, even finance nowadays with STEM. So definitely, yeah, like if anyone's looking to go to uni, I would say look at a degree apprenticeship first. But if they really want to come here and look at the opportunities, then definitely uni is a good choice.
I think what I learned is really interesting. I think having the degree is a great asset. I have a cousin who dropped out of uni and now he's finding it really hard to get a job without a degree.
For my Spanish history module, I have one essay.
For the whole year? That's the entire module?
The entire module is one essay. It's 100% graded on that essay, and we don't get any practice essays. And our lecturer has told us that the reason is that they want to cut back on funding, and they have to pay the lecturers more if they want them to mark more essays.
The culture of uni is very, very different to apprenticeships. I know a couple of friends who are on an apprenticeship. One of them's at, I can't remember the firm now, but doing law, and they aren't having a great time compared to the people that I know doing more traditional uni, because they seem to have to work a lot harder, which, you know, it's great for them. They're going to come out with an amazing degree and lots of work experience, but it's not the same experience.
It's not advertised as much, degree apprenticeships, as much as university degrees, but nowadays it's more common, for apprenticeships. But I think apprenticeships actually better because you get money and you get a degree at the same time, and there's no debts. So if I was to go again, I'd probably choose a degree apprenticeship.
Back in the studio and joining me are the former Minister for Skills, Apprenticeships and Higher Education, Robert Halfon, and Policy Manager at the Higher Education Policy Institute, Josh Freeman, and co-chair of the London School of Economics Labour Society, Maxim Murashov. Thanks again to you for joining me here. Let me begin, if I may, with you, Robert. You have a political lifetime commitment to advancing apprenticeships. That's been at the heart of your career. So let me ask you, would you now recommend, knowing what you do, would you now recommend someone should go to university or do an apprenticeship degree?
Well, what I would say is it depends what course they're doing at university. If it's a good course that gets them a good skilled job at the end of it, then I think absolutely it's worthwhile. But what I would also say is that we have an incredible degree apprenticeship offering, and I describe degree apprenticeships as my two favourite words in the English language, because what they do, it means you can do an apprenticeship at higher level, level 6 or level 7. You earn while you learn, you get good pay, there's no loan to take up, and you're virtually guaranteed to get a good skilled job at the end of it. And you can do degree apprenticeships in fields as far as aeronauticals to zoology, with nursing, policing. Got a new doctor's apprenticeship that has come on board. So it's an incredible thing to do. And my dream would be to have 50% of students doing degree apprenticeships and to change the nature of university so that most students do some kind of work experience, but extensive work experience alongside their course.
Max, Robert talked there about the job, the outcome when you leave university. Let me ask you, did you go to university believing it's the route to a higher paid job?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. And I didn't go to university because it's the route to a high paying job. And I think that's what's important, because some of the skills you gain at university are not directly correlated jobs, but you do learn more about yourself. You get to do extracurricular activities that you wouldn't do otherwise. You get participation funds. You get to know people who have tried different careers, who want to do different things, and you meet people from all walks of life, different classes, different nationalities, different backgrounds, and different aspirations. And I think that's crucial to getting a job, because beyond hard skills, beyond experience, and beyond knowledge of a field, you need to know people to get a job in this market sometimes, and you also need to know yourself. You need to know what you want. And young people all too often have to deal with lives that fly past. At 16, 18, 17, you're dealing with so many things, and it flew for me. And it's important how that intersects with other inequalities, because I can only imagine how hard that would have flown by if I had to take care of someone, if I had to work a part-time job, not to save for interrailing during the summer, but to make ends meet. And university gives you that time to lay back, explore yourself, and know what you want to do.
Josh, I can see you nodding there, and it's true that you could start university, of course, thinking you want to do one thing and end up with something very differently. But before I draw you on that, the central question is, do you think, given this economy and the ambition of the government is to have higher skilled workforce, that it should matter whether the degree is an apprenticeship degree or a university degree?
Such an important question. This is essential. But I will say, and I think what Robert is talking about is these degree apprenticeships which combine the best of both worlds, and he'll talk about it with much more expertise than I will. But it is about that, getting that university experience alongside getting the experience in the field. I think both can be extremely valuable. But what I will say is that there is plenty of love for the traditional degree route, so setting aside any work that you might do alongside, though most students do work part-time during their degree now. There's plenty of love for it. Most people who study a traditional degree don't regret it, they're very happy with it. 4/5 of them will be better off financially as a result of it, and they're very happy with, as Max was talking about, those other benefits. The networks that you meet, the other skills that you gain, the life experience that you get. So I think it is a little bit too rash, as some have said, to move away entirely from the traditional degree. But there's also plenty of love for those alternatives.
Employers. Yeah. Robert, go ahead.
So what I would say to this, first of all, very important, you take out a huge loan to go to university. It's £9,250 per year.
And that's just the fees.
It's just yes, exactly. And it's not including the maintenance and so on. So if you do take out that loan, you should get something for your money. Now, all these things about getting critical skills and building networks, you can do that also by doing an apprenticeship, whether it's an apprenticeship levels 2 to 4 or degree level 6 and 7. And I think that we need to absolutely look. I had the best time of my life at university. I was only the second person in my family to do it. But I think we live in a very different age now. And we've also got something coming down the line called the lifelong learning entitlement. That's going to change the whole nature of the way people think about university, because people won't have to stay at university for 3 years anymore. They'll be able to do short courses or modules of courses at a time of their choosing. So they'll be able to start these courses almost whenever they want and move from institution to institution. They might do one course at an FE college, one course at a university, and go back to a different FE college to do a further course, all at a time of their choosing. They just build credits academic credits along the way. So huge changes are coming down the line, and my concern is that the university system is still operating in the same way virtually that it did when I was a student. And you've got AI coming, you've got the disruptors, you can do levels 4 and level 5s, higher technical qualifications, you can go to one of 21 institutes of technology that are funded by employers and FE colleges and with university involvement, and get really good skilled qualifications.
But are we facing there, Josh, actually crunch time for universities? Because we heard 40% of the universities are running at the deficit. People like Max are either going to have to pay more money or they're going to go out of business, aren't they?
Yeah. I think the important question here is, are we being fair when we tell young people you can do a degree or you can do an apprenticeship? Because we have to be honest and say that the choice isn't as simple as that. There are something like 300,000 people, 18-year-olds who go to university every year. The number of 18-year-olds who go and do an apprenticeship every year is much, much lower than that. There are many. But
is that because they don't know about it? I mean, Max, did you face that choice? Did you even think of doing an apprenticeship degree or degree apprentice?
No, I didn't. And I think part of that is because it's not advertised to young people. And actually that's one of the benefits of university. The average age to move out is 25 in the UK. You get to move out early, and that's how you develop those skills. But they are fundamentally different. Although employers do say that, I think it's 65% of employers, that the skills you gain in an apprenticeship are transferable, it's not to the same extent as a university degree.
It's even higher, Max. Does that weigh on you? I mean, employers, a study done by University of Stafford, and employers, they came out, basically said, these degree apprenticeships, they rock. It is meeting our skills need. Are you, because the suggestion is actually you might get left behind. Robert's saying your model, the model of university is pretty much going to be out of date soon. Does that worry you?
Well, it changes degree to degree and university to university, but university does offer more flexibility, and that's flexibility within organizations. There are barriers to being promoted to an organization based on whether you have a degree or not. And that's also flexibility in between areas of work. Managers are quite mobile, and for that you often need a degree.
Robert, I mean, the unspoken thing here is the apprenticeships widely, but also degree apprenticeships, they actually don't have a high percentage of people who start them finishing them. It's actually quite shockingly low that in some cases it's nearly half of students are dropping out. I mean, if that was happening to A levels, that would be considered a national scandal. What's going on here?
There's a number of reasons for this, and actually, fortunately, the target was going up in terms of the completions. The target of the previous government was 67% complete. It's got over about 53-54% from the figures that I last saw. But a number of reasons. One, sometimes these apprentices get offered jobs by the companies that do them. The second,
wouldn't they still want to train them?
They still, but they get offered a job, and they may be exceptional. They may get offered a job in another part of the company. The second reason is that we transform the apprenticeship system from these things called frameworks into standards, which is a really tough qualification because we wanted to make sure that apprenticeships were seen as prestigious, really hard things to do, and the qualifications were all designed by employers. So they are hard. They are minimum a year, some are 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, and then they go right up to level 7. So it's a very different system from the old days when you first got into Parliament in 2010. And of course, because they're hard, inevitably, some people will have will have dropped out. But a lot of work has been going in, working with companies, mentoring, support to try and ensure that these more apprentices complete. But sorry, can I just give you one other statistic which is very important? It's always of those apprentices who complete their course, their apprenticeship, well over 90% get jobs in the organisations that have employed them. And that's almost jobs for life in state-of-the-art companies. So, or whether it's SMEs or whether it's big business levy payers. So, if you complete your apprenticeship, you know you're on your way to a winner. Whereas you can't say that sadly about university, where we know lots of graduates are coming out not getting skilled jobs.
Yeah. Well, two things on this. The first thing I think we have this narrative that we need to be pitting university degrees against apprenticeships, and that's just not needed. You can do both. A degree apprenticeship is a great example of that, which involves a significant component of degree level study provided by those traditional universities. There was a very silly campaign promise in the general election by the Conservatives to defund apprenticeships in order to fund, to defund university degrees in order to fund apprenticeships.
Sorry. That's wrong. That's not what they said. They would defund courses that didn't have good outcomes for students. That's continuation, completion, and progression. But the problem, and use that money to fund more apprenticeships at all levels, particularly high levels. So I thought that was a good policy. Why should you fund courses that have poor results?
Well, the Conservatives have been talking for a long time about defunding low quality degrees, and they haven't managed to do it in that time. What I will say, that traditional degree model has been around for 800 years, and I think it will probably be around for a number of hundred more. It's very attractive to students to go away from home, meet new people, get new experiences, experience that independence, and then you get that opportunity to move into work later, or, as more than half of students do now, work part-time during your traditional degree, which may well be in the skills that are relevant to your future.
But forgive me, the point, the unspoken point here is that Tony Blair, when he determined that 50% of those eligible should go to university, made that massive uplift, his goal, very worthy, was to develop a high skill base in this country. Here we are, 25 years later, with that same model, a lot of it, of those 800 years of what we know as conventional universities and the introduction of apprenticeships, partly with your government, partly with Labour, we failed. We still got a skills gap. Why is that?
Well, by contrast, if you ask Universities UK, who've done a lot of research on this, they would say that the very limited growth that we have had as a country over the last 20 years or so has been through developing a high-skilled workforce, much of which has come out of your university.
But is that because we're doing wrong courses, perhaps, that we're not getting enough of them?
Right, and this is exactly the question. So it's the question that is asked too often is, do too many people go to university? I think that's the wrong question. I think the question should be, are they doing the right courses when they get there? Robert mentioned a moment ago that we shouldn't be funding low-quality degrees, and I absolutely agree. And there's plenty of people doing...
What is a low-quality degree?
Well,
Robert, let me ask you, what's a low-quality degree? Then we'll ask Max.
To me, a poor-quality degree is a degree where there is either poor continuation, so they don't continue, poor completion, they don't complete, and poor progression.
Can you think of one, or would you like to highlight one?
So there are a number of universities that have been under investigation by the Office for Students for very poor outcomes of their courses.
So students being stole a pup, basically.
Well, I think it's partly been sometimes courses are a money spinner, or sometimes there's poor quality teaching, because it isn't. Sometimes I got attacked. People said, "Hang on, just one second," saying it was all an attack on creative subjects. It's not, because you might get a science subject in one university where brilliant outcomes. You might get the same subject in another university where there were poor outcomes. But just go back to my central point. I promise I'll shut up after that.
I'll make him if he doesn't.
The universities are operating in the same world. Just because something's gone on for 800 years doesn't mean it should continue. We live in a kind of Uber world, and the university is still operating on a black cab model, and that's no offence to the black cabs. I love them.
Well, I think that's not to say that certain degrees are less valuable, and that's a separate discussion.
But are there Mickey Mouse degrees, as they're rather crudely called?
I think just because of the nature of what a university is, about exploring, letting you live by yourself, letting you take a step back from the busy life that you may have been living before. And as I said, that's the important distinction is that a lot of it is intersectionality, and a lot of the reasons that people drop out of courses is because there's not enough support in universities, there's not enough funding, there's not enough part-time jobs, people feel isolated. Predominantly those who drop out of degrees, including Mickey Mouse degrees, are people from disadvantaged backgrounds, people who suffer from mental health. And so a lot of this is not just universities versus apprenticeships, it's about how we treat our young people. And you say about our university, about the Tony Blair's growth model, well, a lot of things have changed back then. For example, those industries that predominantly employ graduates have cut their investments in people, have cut their investments in training new employees, which is what has some in the public sector, it's above 30%, in banks, also above 30%. That's what makes it hard to get jobs.
You touched on something very interesting, social mobility, effectively, when you talked about people come from socio-economic, more deprived areas. But in fact, you wrote a paper, Josh, where you were pointing out that actually there was quite a success story in the sense of the number of people who are now going to university from some of the sort of poorest economic postcodes. Problem is, you said they're not staying. And why is that, do you think?
Well, it's so important. The higher education has been a massive success story in terms of its improving its access over the last 10, 15 years or so. That's fantastic. We're getting in more students from socioeconomically deprived backgrounds. That's brilliant. That's a massive success story. The continuation rates that Robert was talking about a moment, the number who stay in the first year of their qualification or who complete their degree are pretty good. So most students who do come in will complete. But we're doing a very good job of getting them in through the door. We're not quite doing a good enough job of keeping them and supporting them there. There's this new thing called contextual admissions. That means that you take account of whether someone's been to, for example, a private or a state school. Now, that might mean that you favour the state school student a little bit more, but it also means that you have to give them that extra bit of support, and sometimes that's not yet being provided. We need to do more on that.
Robert, finally, look to the future. New Labour government, they're talking about creating Skills England with an eye on the skills gap, and they'll fundamentally have responsibility for apprenticeships. They're going to reform the use of the apprenticeship levy as well. Do you actually welcome some of the measures? Do you think that they're going in the right direction?
I'm worried about the Skills England, whether it's just going to become a giant quango, and it's going to mean huge upheaval in the system, which I think will have an impact on apprenticeship starts and skills starts over the coming year. Sadly, they're getting rid of the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, which I, funny enough, legislated for a few years ago. And I think that we don't know yet what is going to happen. If they appoint a really big hitter, does it really have influence across government? Can it galvanise all the skills bodies together? I absolutely think it should have a role with universities.
So the jury's out. Do you have any specific reason to think that the Labour Party, now in government, can achieve what hasn't been achieved before, improve productivity by higher skills? And if so, why, Max?
I'm a big fan of broadening apprenticeships to include skills beyond the traditional blue-collar occupations, to include stuff like digital education, climate education, and I think that shows an attitude of we do have a problem with graduate employment.
But we have to get them into jobs, don't we?
We do have a problem with graduate employment, and there are plenty of reasons for that, not just on the supply side from university apprenticeships, from the economy as a whole, skills, London, regional inequality. But increasingly, universities are starting to offer placements, even on those, less respected degrees. They're starting to integrate work experience into their courses, and that bridges the gap. That brings these things closer together, and it gives us a less divisive and a more unified education system that can pull more people up.
You know what my final question is going to be to you? Now you're in your second year at a university. Have you ever thought, as the debt accumulates and you are working your way through, should I have perhaps done a degree apprenticeship?
I have thought about dropping out because this may seem like a fringe issue, but with funding yourself, especially in places like London, universities don't offer enough support with part-time work. There's not enough jobs on campus, and having to find jobs elsewhere, commuting costs pile up, wages are down, 0-hour contracts have quite a few problems if you're looking for regular employment, and I don't think I've had a job where I haven't had at least a slight issue with my employer over the last 2 years.
There's a £286 million fund to help students with the majors, and lots of universities give grants of 1,000, 2,000 and above to students to help them with the maintenance.
Are you going to stick it?
Yeah, because I think the flexibility that I'm going to get, especially in a country like England, and the UK in general, where we have such transferability between courses, and graduates from history go into law. That's not the case in the US, for example, where young people don't know what they want to do. I don't want to commit to a high intensity, focused apprenticeship. I want to explore what life has to offer.
And good luck to you, Max. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Westminster Watch. Indeed, again, to all my contributors, thanks for joining me. And don't forget to subscribe to the TRT World YouTube channel for more lively debate and conversation. But for now, from me and all the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.